witness. I am an example of the fact that any Kenyan can run for presidency. As I stand here, I am here to break this sort of wall where we believed only a certain person and peoples. The Catholic Church has been issuing statements, NCCK has done that, Evangelical Alliance, the Muslims have been speaking. Probably it's only that they haven't been covered as much.
You yourself say that this is your sixth stab at an election. You have been unsuccessful in the past, for example, when you ran for governor of Lamu in 2013. So what's different now? What makes you think you will win this race?
There is nothing in life like not giving up. And the trouble we can be in Kenya is we give up as we go forward to the 9th. One of my persons I followed much is Abraham Lincoln. And if I remember my history right, it was during his 13th attempt, though before that he had won some legislative position, that he became the President of the United States. And when he did that, we know that he's the one who brought about the slavery emancipation, something to date that speaks to this world about the fact that all men and women are created equal. And that's why we can speak tonight as we are here. I am an example of a person who does not give up. I have not lost in every election, I can tell you. Like the last one of 2017, I would tell you that's an election where I believe I was rigged out. It's only that I couldn't get the facts, and I had done my bit. That was the election, if you remember, where one of my competitors said that people were voted through the computer. I was going to be the senator of Lamu County. But here I am. You must live to fight another day. I am here because there is no room for giving up. The trouble in Kenya, we are where we are because we've given up. Right now, as I speak to you, and I thank you for this opportunity, Media Council, there are Kenyans who have said, tutapiga kura tu yeyote, fatalistic attitude. But thank you for the opportunity to tell Kenyans that, no, there is still another one. We don't have to recycle. There's change this time.
Maybe because you've not gotten the opportunity, that's why you can stand tall and say you have not been involved in any corruption, perhaps if you had an opportunity. But away from that, as an advocate, would you advocate for the division, complete division between the state and religion?
First, on your first question, it's not that I have not had an opportunity, I have not been appointed at the top. No, I have had occasions where I have led, but also in my private life. You see, it fights from the lowest unit as a lawyer. I can stand here and say, I have not been accused. I have not stolen clients' money. It's not just here. I've had these positions of responsibility. I've sat on the Council of the Law Society. I've sat in several corporate and non-government and religious boards. But so it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that I'm in. But coming to your question, would I advocate? I think it's important that state and region be separated. And by that, I think we need to define what that means. Because basically, it's saying that it's like every person in a state should be allowed to exercise their faith without the government imposing on them who it is, what faith they should follow. And that's where the whole principle about state and religion comes from. But also, religious organizations have a very important part to play in the nation. They teach about better ways of living, morals. They bring governments to book. They call out when things are not going right. I do not know of any religion that condones corruption, stealing from the poor, taking money from the sick. You know, I do not know of any religion that talks about fighting, hating your neighbor. I know every religion advocates for the golden rule. Love your neighbor, peace. And they are an important component. And in a Ghana government, in a Maura Waigah government, religious leaders will play a very pivotal role. To the extent I believe, in my government, they'll even sit in cabinet. In my government, when they perform civic duties, which they do, they should even be remunerated because they are helping the government. They are rendering a service.
Mr. Maura, the question is, would you want this taken out of the Constitution completely? That it will guarantees this. You're talking to us what exists in the Constitution. What is your view? Would you want it taken off completely, or you still want it to be under the control of the state?
Come again. You need to repeat that question. Let me get you right, Ken.
The question is, what you're telling us tonight is what is entrenched in the Constitution.
Right.
My question is, as an advocate, would you want 32(1) to be expunged completely so that it's not guaranteed in the Constitution?
No, not at all, not at all. The freedom of worship and the separateness of the state and government, those are key. Standing here as a man of color, I'm probably speaking to a person who thinks, now my faith has no place in future. But standing here in who I am inside is a representation of the fact that I'll take care of everybody. Because my faith says, treat all people equal. Become a person of peace. Share equally. Defend the voiceless. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. And exercise not just equality, but equity for all. That is true religion. And for my faith, the Christian faith, that's what it stands for.
Mr. Waigah, more often than not, we see on television the church being used by politicians, the pulpit being used by politicians for them to play politics. What is your view on this? How are you going to ensure that stops?
It's not all churches that do that. First of all, a number of churches have different requirements and order of how they do things. And some of them permit, some do not. It's also important to recognize that in our society and many societies, church is a place where people meet, is a place that brings people together. I think what's important is to define what can be said within a church context building, a church building context, because the church is a place of worship. And it should not be a place where people should come and attack others, hurl abuses at others. No, that's not true religion. It's not a place where people should come and speak ill of another tribe. It's not a place even where people should come in and condone the sort of things that have made our nation be what it is those many years that I've mentioned. So I would say I don't see a problem either way. The only way, it should be tempered. It should be able to pass the same message for which a church sanctuary or any other faith exists.
But you haven't quite answered the question. What is it that you will do to ensure that those tempers are brought down and dirty politics are not played in church?
I think speaking from here, I would only urge fellow spiritual leaders and religious leaders to, right now we are calling for peace, and I've been calling for that in my campaign. I've been speaking out and reminding Kenyans that we have a life after 9th. We have a nation. Our nation is not completely down and under. There is hope for this nation. And I would just urge them, as the CEO of this nation, I don't think I can order them, nor can I register it as to how they should conduct themselves. But I know our religious leaders of all faiths, and even church leaders who I'm closer to, they know what they should do, and they are listening to us. They are listening to us.
We'll now move to the topic of leadership and integrity. Apart from the professional, real record in the professional service, that's the Law Society of Kenya, and what you have done to the community, you don't have an apparent record of public service. What do you bring to the table to Kenyans, to table and tell them, because of this and that, I stand here tall and I can ask you to give me your vote?
Public service, I don't have a record. I think what you're saying is that I've not been elected or appointed into a position. Yes, there can only probably be one appointment into any given position. I have indicated the number of years that I've been in the legal profession. That's a position of responsibility. I have been involved, I have led a party for the last 16 years. That is a story of success in Kenya. A story of success, a party that has fielded people, a party that has stood up for what it was registered and formed for. Not only that, I have led, as far as I can remember, high school, I was in leadership positions. I have sat in both corporate and other boards where I have given leadership decisions. In all my life, I've found myself being moved to leadership positions, except the one that I'm looking for. But you know what? There is always a time for one to start. There is always an Obama moment and a Mandela moment for a person. I believe this for me is an Obama, is a Mandela, not just for me, but for Kenyans. But if you allow me to turn out your question, Ken.
Yes.
I am not sure I would have wanted to have some experience that I see with some of the leadership that will stand here or has stood here. I wouldn't want that experience. What experience are we talking about of? Running our country down, scandals, corruption, you know, named in every other scandal, and yet they want to be a president. They have named in everything that has brought our nation to its knees, which it is now. If it's not them, it's their relatives, it's people close to them. For me, that is not experience. If that's part of the experience you probably are referring to, I feel I'm so grateful tonight that I'm not part of it. But I can assure you, if I had gotten in that position, I would have been the same person that you're looking at tonight.
Apart from telling Kenyans what you bring to the table, being tried and tested, Mr. Waigah, is a very big issue in this country. I want you to look at your opponents who are not there tonight and tell Kenyans why you, why not Kenya Kwanza, why not Azimio, and why not Roots, in terms of integrity.
Kenyans, as I said at the beginning, we are at a defining moment. The elections of 9th August are pretty defining for the reasons I said before. High cost of living that we have never had before, high cost of food prices, such high employment as we've never had before, such high debt, foreign debt, not to mention the internal debt that we have. A lot of we had them in 2013. We had them in 1997, in 2007. And the question that you Kenyans, you must be asking, like I'm asking, what is the difference now? I even want to go further and say, even for those who it is said they might have decided, looking at the four of us, who can you say has made a difference in your life this far? If so, why are we where we are? Why do we still have money that should have been used in developing our country, stashed in nations abroad, illegally obtained and legally stashed? These are public resources. I'm not talking about personal private money. Why are we here at a time like this? And the Auditor General 4 years back tells us 215 billion Kenya shillings from Eurobond cannot be accounted for. It cannot be traced. It is a mystery. Why are we here before? And the Auditor General Nancy tells us this year that 70 billion Kenya shillings alone has not been used. Why are we here in a year like this when we have that much foreign loan? The Auditor General tells us about 540 billion Kenya shillings is in an accounted expenditure. And yet, this was a government that was supposed to change things. We had hope, but it didn't turn so. I believe the only thing that will move us forward is complete change from the top to the bottom. And what is permanent is only change, as they say. Recycling them will not take us anywhere. That's why this is a very defining election.
But you haven't told us why not those candidates. What, for example, would you want to say about these candidates?
Well, come again.
What would you want to say about these candidates, the other candidates who you're running against for president?
All right. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. I would like to say they have been there before. One of them has been a deputy president and is still a deputy president of this republic. He is in government. The things he is saying he can do are things he could have done these last 10 years, this last 20, this last 30, because he's in government that long, and he has not done so. The other one has been a former prime minister. He's been in a coalition, a co-president, if you wish, sharing the government 50-50. The things he is promising are things he could have done, but he has not done. He's been in this race for the last 40 years. And the other one has been in government also. He's been with the police force, he's been in the intelligentsia, and even right now, I believe he is still in there. And the thing I'm saying is, if you take even these last 10 years, let me just take these last 10 years, where we have a deputy president who wants to run for presidency. This year, my team and I have counted these last 10 years, not less than 22 scandals that have taken place in broad daylight. And those are the ones that have been reported. There are others, we are told, are secret agreements about contracts to make roads that we don't know what they say. If you go to the former coalition government, where we had one of my competitors has been a co-president, a prime minister. We have counted about 12 scandals, and they have been there. They were even there in the Moi regime. And the final one, you've worked in government, you've traveled across the world, you must know something about our funds which are stashed abroad there. You are in the intelligentsia, you have served, you never retire from that. They don't fit the bill. They are not helping Kenyans.
Okay.
They are not taking